welcome to Scale Smart Live. I am your host, Taja M. Graham. I am CEO and founder of Ops IQ. I am so glad to have you guys here tonight. Little bit about Ops IQ. It is for those founders that are scaling and looking to scale fast, okay? This is a platform for you to be able to resource documentation within our library, a real-time dashboard to help you see the trajectory of your growth as you move forward and grow. And then as well as a curated group of C-suite advisors that will work alongside of you in helping you track the success that you want. So we are looking forward to launching next month. Will be a soft launch. So if you want to know more about Ops IQ, please make sure to follow our page right here at Ops IQ, COO in a box. All right. Tonight, I am so thrilled for the guest that I have. If not for her and her coaching of me as a professional, I would not be able to have the vision of Ops IQ and the many different business entities that I have been able to dream up over time. And so it is my pleasure to bring to you tonight my personal coach, the person that I go to and consult with and seek advice from. First of all, she's amazing at just the coaching, but more importantly, she is an author. And you're going to hear more about her current book, Echo, and her upcoming books that she has in play for 2026. And more importantly, her journey and how it makes her a well-rounded individual who then looks to those that she's coaching to fulfill that in them being a whole, well-rounded leader in what they will do in their atmosphere. So I am delighted tonight to bring to you Melissa Bassano. Melissa, welcome to Scale Smart Live.
Hi, Taja. One of my all-time favorite clients. I am so happy to be here with you.
So I kid you not, she said, oh man, you don't talk me up, but I am for real when I say she is one of the most prolific people that I know. And she can say it loud, but she oftentimes is going to put it in a place where it's very relevant to you and how you present yourself and how you are. So I'm glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about you and Browning Associates and what you do there for them. And we'll talk more obviously about our connection, but I want to give the floor to you.
Sure. Yes, I've been with particularly Browning Associates. I have been there for about 13 years. I started coaching way back in 1994. I started out as an interview coach, and some people know that I worked for the Miss USA organization for about 20 years. So I had a lot of experience in coaching pageant girls, coaching executives, and doing a lot of life coaching as well. So I've known John, our fearless leader at Browning Associates, for, at least 20 years, 25 years. And when he asked me to join the team at Browning Associates, I, of course, would have never said no. I mean, it was the logical next step in my career, and I never looked back. I am so happy to be here, and I get to meet wonderful people like you, Taja, and have amazing clients, and I get to be on their journey from the beginning of their career transition to when they start their new opportunity, or maybe even come back because they're great at that opportunity, but it was time to move on and they needed a little more coaching to make that change. And so they come back and say, hey, I need a little help. Will you help me? And of course, I'm always here.
That is absolutely true. She is absolutely always there, has been there for me. So as we begin tonight, I'm going to ask anyone who is watching tonight, and if you have questions of Melissa or I, feel free to put it in the chat. We definitely want to be able to respond to your questions. But all right, I'm going to tackle a little bit about how this connection happened. So, as a professional, being in an industry for a very long time, waking up one morning and saying, okay, what's next for me in my life as I begin a career transition? What does that look like? I did my homework, did my research, and was grateful to have found Browning Associates, and more importantly, grateful to have found Melissa. I think that they paired me up right with the right coach and mentor, someone that, as you saw and heard, has a very diverse background. And she could live in my space, kind of really understand where I was in my journey, and help me to be able to decipher where that would take me. And one of the things that I definitely one of the key things she made clear to me was about my connections, and how to make sure that those connections had meaning behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And I am so grateful for that. We take it for granted, right? Most of us have, if you look at our LinkedIn profiles, we've got thousands upon thousands of connections, but how meaningful and significant are they? How can you extend them and grow? And I'm very fortunate that you shared that, Melissa, with me, and talk a little bit about how that is so meaningful, especially as you're thinking about a transition professionally.
Sure. Well, I think what happens is most people, when they're in a transition, they look at their connections, or they look at their professional network, and they'll say, okay, I think these people can help me. And they forget about all the real connections that they have. And I was just talking to a client about this the other day. It's not usually the people who you think can help you are going to be the people who help you. It's actually going to be the most surprising people in your network that you never thought of. And as John, our fearless leader, John Sarachek, likes to say, Busher Baker Candlestick Maker. And it's everybody in your network, right? It's every single person that you have good connection with. If you have good rapport and good connection, that's what matters, because every connection has opportunity, and you have to look beyond, can this person help me?
Yeah. And it's also about how you can help them too, right? Like there's so much
Absolutely.
in both sides of it. It's not just a transactional piece, but how can you bring value to those that you are connecting with? And, to your point, you never know who might have that connection. I was just with some family members recently, and they were asking, okay, what's this Ops IQ that you're doing? What does that really mean? We don't really understand it. And when I started explaining it to them, they were like, oh, we got some people you need to talk to. And so it's, you never want to discredit, even those family members or people that, are in your closest of circles, in giving them that exposure. So that definitely, and you wrote a book to that end.
I was just going to say, one of the stories from the book, Echo, Every Connection Has Opportunity. One of the stories in there is about a real live client who she called all her connections, and these were the people that she thought could help her. And there were a few people in her personal network that she really didn't want to reach out to, because she felt like, if she reached out to them, they weren't going to be good connections for her. But what happens is, when you reach out to those people, they're going to be more likely to have that close connection with you, and you just don't know who they know. So one of the stories was, it was her former banjo teacher. And that former banjo teacher, in her mind, has been a banjo teacher for 40 years. And in my perspective of it is, that man's been a banjo teacher for 40 years. Imagine the people that he has been in contact with, because, it's not just little Johnny next door who wants to play the banjo. It is a CEO. It is the vice presidents. It's all those people who want a hobby. And lo and behold, his daughter-in-law happened to be vice president at an organization that she was interested in, and he made that connection. And she really wanted to call me and tell me that I was right, but yet she didn't want to call to tell me, to say, oh, you're right, because I had been wanting her to reach out to her network for quite some time. So once that connection happened, it clicked, and she understood what every connection has opportunity really meant. And I actually have a similar story with my neighbor. My neighbor was out of work, and his wife was a nurse, and she was at the hospital, and they were having the interior of their house painted. And he's a very gabby guy. Dave's a real gabby guy. And he was talking with the painter, and he was asking him, what did he used to do for a living? And, why was he out of work? And the painter's brother was actually in the exact same industry. And now Dave works for the Painters Brothers company. So
Wow.
I could go on and on about stories of how that happens. And so when people hear me say you have to reach out to your network, they clam up because they don't want to ask people they know for help, right? It's uncomfortable. But the way we talk about it is building rapport with people, right? If you can build rapport with people, and that's why I'm here to teach you how to be a good rapport builder. If you can master that, you're going to have connections everywhere because people are going to be just like you said. I know somebody you have to talk to. I know somebody that you need to be in contact with, and they make that connection. It happens all the time.
Yeah, daily. Just even this morning, it happened with me again, and it's like, yep, there it is, another opportunity. That connection
Mhm.
is worth the time. So for those, definitely get this book. It is absolutely a great resource for sure. So we've got three great topics tonight that will express truly Melissa, who she is as a leader, but more importantly, how then it reflects to those that she is coaching and mentoring. So let's talk on the first topic. Let's see here. First topic, leading with purpose, lessons from a career in executive coaching. Give us some tips here on leading with purpose. What are the lessons?
Well, it's interesting because I could answer this two different ways. So, as you know, I'm a cancer survivor. So, before cancer, leading with purpose for me was very mission driven, right? You have something to do. This is my mission, and that's my purpose, is because I'm looking at this mission. And after cancer, my mission is completely different because I align when I coach, and you probably know this, Tasha, you probably felt this, is I really align with my daily beliefs, right? And
Yes.
so my coaching is a little bit different now because I really align with what resonates with me personally and how I lead and how I coach somebody, because it's easier for me when I am looking inside at any fears I might have had to coach somebody through their fears. So I think in order to lead with purpose, you have to be internalized and understand what somebody is feeling to be a good leader. And I think any good leader, any good CEO who's leading a company understands that they really do have to have a relationship and understand their employees in order for them to get on board and want to be part of your mission, and not just an employee who's there for the paycheck, but who's there because they believe in your mission too. And I think that is really leading with purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Being in tune with your emotional intelligence,
Mhm.
understanding, exactly what motivates you, what drives you, really does reflect then how you lead in business and in your communities. And it is so important as a business leader, especially one that has employees under their leadership, that they really grasp that and understand how that impacts the organization performance,
Mhm.
overall, right? If the leader is not in tune with their emotional intelligence and what's really driving them, it
Mhm.
then does spread across the organization.
And
The
it
top,
builds trust. It absolutely builds
exactly.
trust. If you
Yeah.
are someone who can gain trust from your employees, or as a coach, if I can gain the trust of my clients, they're likely going to believe what I'm telling them, and knowing that I'm living what I believe, right? And a lot of the things that I talk about are, you know whether you like it or not, you're a product of your thoughts, and a lot of people are not on board with that way of thinking, but I am. And eventually people really do realize you are a product of what you believe you are and what you think. So if you think you're not going to get that job, I think it was Henry Ford who said, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right.
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 Right. Yes,
And
exactly.
and it's building that trust so people can understand that's the place that I'm coaching from. And I think when you build that trust, it helps people understand themselves, and they know that they can really accomplish anything, that what I'm helping you with is going to work if you follow the structure that I give.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes just beyond what we verbally say, right? It's in the
Mhm.
actions that we take, right? And how that gets reflected as well. So if we're not consistent in either side, then there goes the lack of trust, because I can say it, but if I don't actually express it, right, and take
Right.
action to it, it doesn't
Correct.
matter. Yeah,
And I try to
absolutely.
do that on the daily too. I will post things on social media and, I'm not a perfect person. Things happen to me all the time. And sometimes, I have to put myself in check because I need to follow what I believe and what I'm telling other people. And if I'm not doing that, I have to keep myself in check and say, okay, and it comes down to also, which I know we'll talk about later, is the fear after cancer and your treatments. I'm telling people to let go and believe that, this process is going to work. And if I don't believe that, then I can't expect somebody else to.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That again, here we go. A poignant moment. That's prolific thought leadership right there for sure. So let's talk now to our next topic. I think we have the healing equation,
Mhm.
thriving as a 6-year cancer survivor. Amazing. Tell us about that journey.
Well, on December 31st, on New Year's Eve, 2019, I found out that I had triple negative breast cancer, which is one of the high risk for reoccurrence of very aggressive breast cancer. And to say I was shocked is an understatement because I felt like I was the healthiest I had ever been. I was working out, I had a trainer, I was eating right. It was all these things. And all of a sudden you're struck with, you have breast cancer. And, it was something that I had to stop. I had to grieve, but then after that, I said, I can either let this get the best of me, or I can fight and I can win. And then I can be on the other side and I can help people who are going through the same thing. The ironic thing about all of this is in 2012, 2013, we were running our business, our pageants, and part of that was volunteer work. And one of the organizations we volunteered with was the Gloria Gemma Breast Cancer Foundation in Rhode Island. And we did a lot of volunteer work for them. And so I kind of had an understanding of, what some of the women went through. And then all of a sudden it was my time. And I, gave them a call. Her name is Maria. And I kind of let her know what was happening. And she did help me through some things. And, I see one side of cancer where you can live in that victimhood. And it's very easy to do that. It is so easy to do that, to feel bad for yourself. And, oh my God, why is this happening to me? And, take offense to somebody saying, oh, but, you're going to be okay. You're going to beat it. You're tough. Some people might feel that, that's not an easy thing, don't pretend to be in my shoes kind of thing.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I was taking it to the different level of, people don't know what to say to you when you are diagnosed with breast cancer, and it all comes from a good place. So anything that someone said to me, I took from a good place. And I was determined that I wasn't going to let it get the best of me. And you talk about echo. I have another echo story. When I was diagnosed, I had just gotten a new client. Her name was Chris, and she was a doctor of pharmacy, but she did a lot of holistic healing. And I believe that, God and the universe placed her in my path because she put me on a protocol immediately and said, these are all the things you need to start doing. Yes, you're going to do chemo. Yes, you're going to do all the things they have you do, but these are the things that are going to get you through and help you heal quicker. So the ultimate echo story is, Chris, my client who I had just met, decided she was going to help me as well. There's that reciprocation. And it turned into the best thing that ever happened because she introduced me to someone named Dr. Joe Dispenza, who does meditations. And I would meditate every single night. When I was going through chemo, I meditated every single night. And I just envisioned, the cancer leaving my body, being in out of body experiences, thinking, I'm going to be fine. I'm healed and I'm whole. I'm healed and I'm whole. And everything was going to be fine after. I was just going to move on with life. And when you put yourself, it's not that you're denying that something is happening to you, but I think you give yourself, neuroscience really talks about how you can rewire your brain and heal yourself. Did I do chemo? Absolutely. Did I do radiation? Absolutely. Did I have surgery? Absolutely. But I think all of those things together with healing and thoughts of, things are going to be great. You can rewire yourself for healing. And that's one of the things I talk about in the book that will be coming out in 2026.
Yeah. A couple of great questions here. What was the point, that moment where you knew you needed to pivot in your thinking of how you were going to respond? Like what was the catalyst that really drove you to say, no, I want to take this path to my healing?
Mm-hmm. I have seen how cancer survivors react or cancer patients react. And, it could go either way. You can either go down a dark path, but it's not my nature to do that. My nature is to be a fighter. And my nature is to look at the positives. This was happening to me, I don't know, for some whatever reason. And I needed to take it and learn from it, heal from it. And I knew that I wasn't going to let myself go down that dark path and make things worse. I wanted to make it better. And luckily I was surrounded by, and mind you, I was going through all of this during COVID. So it was my husband and I at home by ourselves. And he deserves a prize for how he took care of me. He was amazing. And his mom, she would cook us meals and we would play dominoes at her house every Friday night just for some sense of normalcy. And I think with them seeing me being on that trajectory of being positive, they wanted to follow along with that and help me along that journey so I wouldn't get stuck in the dark days. And it's not to say I didn't have dark days, because I absolutely did. When your bones are hurting and you're crying and, your husband's crying, you have some dark days, but you can't stay there. You have to allow yourself to grieve that and be upset and be in pain, but you need to pull yourself out to be on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm grateful that your journey has allowed that we can benefit from that, what you've experienced. I'm grateful that you are cancer free, more importantly. But what I'm really excited for with you is that through that journey, how it then reflects back into the coaching and the mentoring that you do. I recall a day of bleakness where I was in that dark moment mentally, and I see clearly how you coached me through and saying, hold on though, think about these things, these positive moments of what has happened and transitioned for you, and don't just rely on what was that negative blip in that moment.
It's
And
important. It's
yeah.
important to point that out. So, when I do life coaching, I have some life coaching clients, and, I have one woman in particular who she sometimes will get into the pity party and oh, I'm not doing this right, or I'm not doing that right. And I will step back and I say, but think of all the things you are doing right. Think of all the things that are going well. Look at how far you've come from the first time you met me to 2 years later, how far you've come. And then she'll stop and think and go, you know what? I'm a badass. You know what? I actually am I'm pretty good now. I'm overcoming things. So it's a little bit of pointing that out, a little bit of laughter. And, we're able to kind of pull ourselves out of those terrible moments.
Yeah, yeah. And you make it so real in the fact that it's okay that we're going to have those moments. They will happen,
Yes.
right? It's
Life
just in
isn't
how we
perfect.
process it, right? Exactly, and how we think beyond it, and
Mm-hmm.
that is so instrumental. What are other aspects of from your journey in this that you feel are relatable to any leader, executive leader that is, looking for, they might be in that period of indecision, and they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out what really is next. How do you make that story of how you've overcome translate even further for those that are seeking that coaching?
Well, I think people sometimes, when they're in transition, whether it is, they were let go for some reason, they were cuts, everybody's feeling like they're almost a failure. And we have to go back. And this is a process I know that we did with you, where you're writing your resume development document. And I think that process really helps people go through, it's cathartic. They really go through all the years of success that they had, which is a little bit of an ego boost to say, I am pretty good. Wow, somebody will hire me because I have had a lot of experience. And then adding to it, like you said earlier, that emotional intelligence, because if you can really work on that, it's going to make you pretty fierce in the job market if you can put together your successes, but also emotionally, you're intelligent enough to sympathize with, whatever situation comes your way, and you don't get pulled down into, oh my gosh, I'm not working, and, this is terrible and it's going to take forever. And you are going to have those bad days. Everybody does. But as long as you can pull yourself out of it, and that's why I'm here to help you get through those dark days as a coach and remind you of all of the amazing things that you've accomplished, so we can move beyond that really tough time and we can move into the successful part, because we need to keep you excited about who you are and your mission and what you want to bring, what you're passionate about, and what you want to bring to that next organization. You have to be constantly excited about that, because that's going to reflect in an interview. If you go into a job interview feeling like you're less than, and you're not going to find a job, it's not going to work out for you, that's really going to come across. People don't realize that comes across in an interview. But when you are really excited and you're positive and you're passionate, I think that's the biggest thing, is your why, about why you love to do what you do. Why is it? What are you passionate about, and why are you passionate about it? If you can really understand that and you can convey that, that's what people are looking for, and that's what's going to get you hired and set you apart from anybody else in that arena who's interviewing.
Yeah. And I think it's also still reflective even with as business owners, right? Like if
Absolutely.
we can't be passionate and really driven by our why, our mission and our vision and our values for our companies, we cannot expect anyone else to do that, right? So
Absolutely.
that's why it's important to that this is a holistic approach, right? It
Mm-hmm.
can't just be, oh, that's the business, but this is me.
Mm-hmm.
No, they have to be married together for it
Absolutely.
to work. Absolutely. So,
Yes, and
and that
if you're a good leader, if you have a high turnover in your company, is it because you're not a good leader? Or is it because you're such a good leader that you're prepping your employees to be more successful? That's an amazing leader. And there are people who have fear around that, because I don't want to pump them up too much, because they might go somewhere else and be more successful. But strong and passionate leaders know how important that is to really develop your employees. And if they're leaving to take on something even bigger and you're excited about that, that is an amazing leader.
Absolutely. And I share this with people all the time, the analogy of if you're holding on too tight to something, that
Mm-hmm.
employee, that whatever that thing is, you can't open your hand to making
Mm-hmm.
way for the new thing to come in. So it could
Mm-hmm.
be that new employee that you are coaching up and
Mm-hmm.
developing, right? That
Mm-hmm.
brings significant value to your business, still,
Mm-hmm.
yet and still. But your responsibility as a servant leader is to
Mm-hmm.
ensure their success. It should
Exactly
be a
right.
part of your mission and plan,
Mm-hmm.
as that business leader. So that
Well,
that is
and as you know, we had a podcast,
yeah.
Power Moves podcast. We started out as the Job Chicks, which I loved the name, but then we kind of transitioned into Power Moves. And my cohort, Brittany, she moved on to something. She has an incredible position now. She is excited about her new role, and we wouldn't be good leaders if we said, oh, you should stay here, or I'm not happy for her, or I'm thrilled that she's moving on to something she's passionate about. She's going to bring significant value to that organization, and I consciously try to make sure that I am that type of leader and person, and someone in her life or someone in anybody that works for us. If you are going to develop yourself to move on and do something bigger, it's my job to wish you well, and it's my job to lift you up, even if it's a hard day. And she would call and say, hey, today was a really bad day at work, or I want to ask you about this. It's my job to build her up and build anybody up to make sure that they are successful. And John, of course, our fearless leader, feels the same way. Of course, we're sad to see you go, but we're happy that you're super successful, and we're happy we could have been part of that journey.
Yeah, that you played a part of that legacy for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
And truly, I mean, the benefit that has been for me as a client, as someone that you continue to coach and mentor, is that I feel like I can always come back to the well, right? Like I feel like I can pick up the phone, when I'm thinking of something new that I want to develop, like Ops IQ or 3 other businesses that I still have down the pipeline. You're one of the first people that I call just to vet and say, is it crazy? Do you think this? And you always lead me back to what is at the core of your why. And oftentimes you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I see that, because you know me well enough to say that. But it always is reflective back to what is at the core of your why. Why does that make sense?
Yes.
And that has been beneficial for me for sure. So we've got a little bit of time left here, but let's talk to our third topic tonight. I don't want to miss out. Beyond illness, healing the mental, physical, and emotional self. Wow, this is a space that we definitely, I really appreciate. I would love to hear your thoughts to this topic.
Well, as a survivor, I actually had cancer twice. I'm a 2-time survivor. And what happens is, after your treatments are done, and after, your doctor says, oh, you're cancer free, everybody's like, woohoo, okay, that's amazing. And then all of a sudden you have this overwhelming sense of fear that, oh my gosh, I'm not seeing the doctor as often. I'm not being checked as much. And, what if it comes back? And I don't know what to do. And you have this overwhelming sense of fear of reoccurrence. And you can really let that overtake your life, or you can pull it back a little bit, and you can go on and live the best life possible, because any of us, something could happen tomorrow. It doesn't have to be cancer. It could be something else. It could be, I'm flying home from Florida and, my plane goes down. It could be anything. You never know what can happen. And so why live in the space of fear when you could be living your best life possible? But it's a long journey to get there. I'm not saying it's a thing that you flip the switch and it happens. It's a long journey to get there. And it's a daily thing that you have to constantly overcome. And that's one of the reasons why with this book, it really is, it's mental, it's physical, it's spiritual. There are so many things that you endure when you are going through something difficult. And it might not be cancer. It could be any illness. It could be a job loss. It could be anything that's really difficult in your life. And I think my whole point, or my view on everything, is why live in that space when you can really figure out. And a mentor of mine, Renee, said to me one day, everything is figure outable. Everything is figure outable. So you can figure it out and get to the other side, or you can live in it. And where do you what are you going to choose, and how are you going to choose to live the rest of your life?
Yeah, yeah. So you've talked about the new book a little bit. Share with us the title and anticipated launch date, or when it will be released.
We are still in just finishing getting edited. I'm hoping for December on Amazon that the healing equation will be out, and it is. I didn't want it to be totally about my cancer journey. There's a little bit of my story in there, maybe a little more than a little, of my story on how I kind of got through that journey. But it's a lot more information on how do we overcome what's happening to us. We talk about the physical. Afterwards, you're left with after surgeries and your pain, and you have all these weird things that are happening from the drugs that you've been taking. So it's something. It's really something that I felt was really important for anybody going through any type of journey, whether it's health, wellness, or even it applies to anybody going through something difficult. So there's a lot in that book about how to overcome anything that's happening, whether it's mental, physical, or spiritual.
Wonderful, wonderful. I saw we had a question from Layla, I believe it was. Back to our first topic. What would signals tell you when someone is leading from clarity versus checking boxes? Oh, that's a good question.
Oh, that is a good question. And I actually have a great answer for that because I was that person. So years ago, when I was coaching, especially executives, I was checking a lot of the boxes, right? I was coaching saying, okay, you've learned this, check. You've learned that, check. And afterwards, after my cancer journey, right, I became this person who had such empathy for people who were going through a difficult time. And why are you going through this difficult time? And how can I help you overcome it? Right. And I feel like I went from that checking the box leader or coach to somebody who became an empathetic leader or an empathetic coach. And I think you have to transform in order for that transition to happen. If you are someone who is just a check the box person, you're going to have something in your life at some point that turns you into something that's more empathetic and understanding, and you come from a different place when you're coaching or leading.
Yeah, yeah. It takes it from being very transactional to being very
Yes.
personal.
And
That's
that's
how
where I think for you and I, it is a very personal relationship for us. It's something where I understand where you're coming from and you understand how I'm coaching it.
Yeah.
Because you have that trust, because we've built that rapport.
100%. Absolutely. Great question. And absolutely, again, awesome answer to that. But I want to go back to the book now. So you had expressed that there are some tips that you have in there as to how to overcome those dark moments. Give us 2 or 3 that enlighten us on what we might see, a little sneak
Sure.
peek into the book.
A lot of it is getting grounded. In today's world, everything is fast paced. It's technology. We're constantly on our computers, constantly on our phones, and we forget who we are at our core. And we forget that healing is all around us. Spending 10 minutes in the sun is amazing healing, right? Vitamin D is a healer, right? Going for a walk with your feet in the grass, touching the earth, that's an amazing healer. There are so many things that you can do, just taking some deep breaths. In the morning before I touch my phone, and my husband is not this person. My husband he has eyes open and the phone is in his face to see what's happening. Before I touch my phone, I have to get a cup of coffee, take a few deep breaths, kind of just, get myself grounded before I start my day, because that's going to set the pace. If you're looking at your phone immediately, you're automatically in that fight or flight mode. And that's what breeds disease, is fight or flight. If you are constantly in that mode, and my mom's a great example of this. So my mom had breast cancer this past spring, totally unrelated. We have zero family history for both of us, and we had cancers that weren't related to each other. And she would be okay with me telling the story because I tell her all the time, she lives in fight or flight constantly.
Mhm.
She just has a lot of anxiety and she's always worried about different things. And she lives in fight or flight all the time. And fight or flight can cause dis-ease in your body. And that can be a breeding ground for things to happen like cancer or MS or, all of these autoimmune issues. If you live in fight or flight, you're making yourself more at risk for those types of things.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Wow. That is so true. I recall I took a sabbatical, if you remember, between what was my previous career and moving on to being a business owner to be able to clear up all of that flight or fight,
Yes.
the stress level of it all, and really getting into a routine of meditation and engagement to become more centered in who I am. And it is a process, right? Every day it's a commitment.
It
Uh,
is.
to, uh,
It
so
truly is. And it
yeah.
saved my life. Meditation saved my life.
So I saw a question. I'm sorry, Leila. I was trying to read it while you were there. Last question. Haha. Would love to know, what does your current version of health look like, and how is it different from the version you once chased?
That's a good question. So my old thought of, health was I can do it all. I can do everything. I am fast paced from morning till night and nothing can stop me. I was a single mom years ago and I was working 2 jobs and, I'm a superhuman. I can do it all. And to me, that was healthy, right? I worked out. I tried to eat right, but I was running 24/7 and I was stressed out as a young single mom, right? And my version of health now is I don't want to be fight or flight. I don't want to be busy 24/7. I want to have that time for self-reflection and, time for me. And, I don't feel guilty going for a massage or going for a walk so I can clear my
Yes.
head. It's a completely different way of living for me because I don't want to live that life anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a journey! I am so grateful to have you on with us tonight, Melissa Bassano. So definitely, for those that are watching, make sure if you want to know about how to convert those connections. Oh, Taja, and what's yours before you got coaching from Melissa Bassano? Wow. Okay, woo,
That's
she's asking all the
a
good
good
questions.
one.
Oh my, wow. So for me, it was a lot about people pleasing. I knew that that was something I might not ever really be able to overcome. And I still, I managed that a great deal. And it's even more so now with being in business. I have to correct that. So, setting boundaries and being very clear in what it is, my expectations, or what I will bring to the table and what I expect back, was something that, in working even with Melissa, really helped me a great deal. So, having a successful career in corporate settings, you spend a lot of time wanting to live up to the value of what is the standard or beyond within those segments. And so that's something that I, really took heed to and took to heart. But I think what it did for me beforehand was it left me the authentic me behind. And in this now space of having worked on the journey with Melissa, I can be authentically 100% myself. And I spend the time and invest the time with myself to in the ways of meditation or walks or things like that, so that I can say what is important to me, and those things that are not have to go to the wayside. So,
Mhm.
and that means can't please everybody.
That's right. That is right.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Melissa, for sharing tonight. I hope you guys have really found this to be beneficial. Next go around, we will have one of the best, smartest minds in finance. Omar Ritter will be joining us to talk about all things that help you in the scope of your finances. More importantly, I'm hoping that he will share his book. I love authors, as you can tell. His book, From West Point to Wall Street, and his journey as that relates. So Thank you for being with us tonight, and we look forward to seeing you soon.